Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of an Evolved Review. I'm your host, James Caleb Kitchens, and as always, I am joined by none other than Caleb Stovall, the man who watches more wrestling than anyone alive in any known multiverse. Welcome back to the show, man.
It is true, and I don't have to have a Spider-Man reboot to show it.
Two reboots,
Yeah, I know.
multiple reboots. Yeah, man. So we were out last week. I was at the beach, um, and then everything decided to happen.
I know, right? Literally everything in wrestling decided to happen.
So, on that note, big shout out to the guys over at Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast. They had their 5 year anniversary, and to celebrate that, they had their own show. Hell Freezes Over. I did shoot a little promo for that from Club La Vila. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Really? No, I
The
didn't see that.
Yeah, or the ruins of Club La Vila, rather. So that check that out if you want. But everything that I heard from the show, I heard that it was long. It was like 10 matches. But everything that I've heard, like, it was an amazing first attempt. I think that one of the things those guys are really going to find out, or did find out, I haven't had a chance to talk to Nick or Myron in depth because I was out of town. But the thing that I kind of knew they would find out is, like, there's so much more to running a show than anybody can imagine.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they right now are maybe not even talking about doing it again next year. But I think I haven't listened to the show this week, but I think maybe the itch will come back around, and that maybe they'll do a second one. I hope they do because I wasn't able to be there. I was out of town, like I said, and I would have loved to have been there. I have heard some feedback here and there, but I definitely am looking forward. The show is going to be released online, so I'm
Nice.
looking forward to seeing that. And hell, maybe we can review that. Maybe if it hits at a good time when we don't have like a million other things to look at.
Yeah, yeah. I'd be so down with that. That would be a first for us.
Yeah. So, speaking of having a million things to look at, a lot of things came up in the last 2 weeks. We didn't have an episode for you guys last week, so what we're going to do kind of a double header tonight. We're going to record this one. We're going to do the State of Wrestling, September 2021. So we're going to talk about all sorts of things, and then we're going to end this episode. We'll put that up online, and then we are going to review, I think, what may be the most anticipated episode of this season so far. Is the plane ride from hell.
In more ways than one was it anticipated.
Yeah, I've been waiting to talk about this one for over a year now since they first, said officially, yes, we are going to do the plane ride from hell. It's come up on so many podcasts over the years. Conrad kind of tried to get Bruce Pritchard to talk about it a while back, and he didn't get very much out of him, but Bruce was not on the flight.
Yeah.
So that may have something to do with it. He may not have wanted to speak on, secondhand information. So that would make sense. But we're going to talk all about that in that episode. So definitely check that out.
Yeah.
So much has come out of that episode. I think it's probably the most impactful, on the current wrestling scene episode of Dark Side of the Ring ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, we've heard stories and we've heard teases and everything. I did not know though the extent of it. Like at first, I thought it was gonna be like a lighthearted comedy
Me
almost,
too. Me too.
and then it just took a turn in the episode, and I went, oh shit.
Yeah, I was thinking that it was going to be an episode absolutely full of like shenanigans and stuff. I did not know that it was going to turn into, well, I mean, it's very accurately called the plane ride from hell.
Yeah, literally. And we'll talk about it on that one. I'm definitely excited to get into that. And I probably, just like a lot of other people, have a lot of mixed emotions coming out of that.
Yeah. So speaking of Dark Side of the Ring, there was an announcement this week that with everything else going on, it could have fallen through the cracks, but I'm glad that it did not. This is probably, we talk about like momentous things to happen with AEW as far as momentum and things like that. You have CM Punk, which if there's anything that kind of changed the tide, right, it was that. And then Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole being the icing on top of that whole situation,
Yes.
along with others. Um, Let me read you this bit from the press release.
Okay.
So all Elite Wrestling and the Owen Hart Foundation, a nonprofit charity which provides a vast range of assistance and opportunities to individuals in need across the world, are collaborating to honor the legacy of the late wrestler Owen Hart, a beloved figure in the professional wrestling community and beyond. This collaboration includes launching the annual Owen Hart Cup tournament within AEW, which will see the winner receive a cup known as the Owen, as well as the production and distribution of unique and original Owen Hart merchandise, including specified retail goods, as well as the upcoming, and this is the major exclamation mark on the end of this, the upcoming AEW console video game.
Yeah.
So, first off, Owen Hart has not appeared in a video game since his death,
No.
um, or really in anything remotely related to pro wrestling, you know, other than the Dark Side of the Ring episode. There's just a lot to unpack here because this is huge.
Yeah, dude, it really is, but it's amazing.
It is. It is incredible. And a lot of people said, well, this is a direct shot at WWE. And to that, I'm saying, so what? I hope it is because, let's see. Rather than inducting him into the WWE Hall of Fame, let's honor him with not only at a company that didn't kill him, but let's honor him in a way that his family is comfortable with and that they believe he would have approved of.
Yeah, and you even heard it in the Dark Side of the Ring. They don't trust WWE. They don't like WWE. And I think what Tony Khan, and not only Tony Khan, obviously Chris Jericho and Jeff Jarrett probably had to have a hand in it and everything like that. Um, you know, it seemed like at the end of Dark Side of the Ring, I may have brought this up in the episode. I'm not sure if I did or not, but it seemed like at the end of that Martha Hart was so, obviously, frustrated and pissed off with WWE that she and her kids, that like they hated wrestling. And I was
Right.
like, that's not like, I get, like, every time they would talk about wrestling, they would make it seem like Owen was just ready to get out the minute before he started, kind of thing. Like they just wanted to, they just did not have anything good to say about it, about wrestling. And I was like, that's really sad because I guarantee you, Owen Hart obviously loved professional wrestling. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean, he loved it, but the thing in the documentary that I think they were trying to really get at was that he didn't want to be a lifer, right? Like, he did not want to be a Sting or a Ric Flair or a Hulk Hogan or, Abdullah the Butcher, any of these guys who
yeah.
have, I don't want to say overstayed their welcome because, as we'll talk about in a bit, Sting is better than some of the people that are in their primes right now uh, at this very moment.
I
Uh,
know.
like he can go out and wrestle on television in front of 2 million people, and then go get the senior citizen discount at Denny's. You know what he can.
I mean,
Not very many people can do that.
I mean, he can, but like my whole point was like it seemed like they blamed wrestling
Right.
for what happened, and it's not wrestling's fault. It's WWE's fault. It's
Right.
it's that whole situation, but it's not pro wrestling. A lot of pro wrestlers looked up to Owen Hart.
And
You know,
still do.
oh
And I'm sure that Brett and Martha had a lot to do with it. I'm sure that they probably got input from probably Jericho and Christian and several
yeah,
others. CM Punk gave his thoughts on it, And the thing is, uh, I'm sure we both on our social media have a lot of people from the independent scene, and it was really amazing to me at like the outpouring of support for this. And a lot of people see this as just as big of a deal as CM Punk coming in. Certainly not for the ratings, but just kind of what it means for the company. Because really, AEW is the first threat to WWE since WCW. Uh,
Oh,
n-
100%.
no offense to Impact, right? But uh, AEW, right? I mean, AEW from a pay per view buy rate stance, the very best TNA pay per view in history did not do as well as some of the worst AEW buy rates
Yeah.
in their entire run.
Yeah, no. Jeff Jarrett's even said this, like, our his pay per view buy rates were not good and everything like that at times. But no, I mean, I agree. This is a big move, and I can tell you one of the instances where a lot of all of this comes into play, and and it might come across the wrong way, but it truly is when you've heard almost everyone say this. It was the Brody Lee situation.
I
That
think,
was what did it for a lot of people because CM Punk and Bryan Danielson both saw that and they were like, "Oh my God, that's amazing what they did for him."
yeah, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, it's just about respect across the board.
Yeah.
I was reading an article today. It was an interview with Mike Chioda, which I'm surprised, honestly, that he's not in a little bit of hot water. We'll talk about that on the next episode. Um, because some of the stuff he said in that episode was kind of borderline, you know. But Mike Chioda was talking about how with WWE, some of the refs they have dual roles. So they're on the crew, so they come and they set up, and then they also ref the show. And those refs make a bit extra for being on the crew, and they get lodging paid for. But for the referees, that's their only job there. Apparently, their travel is not covered,
Apparently not.
and that to me was just like, I mean, you're a company that's a multi-billion-dollar company. You have just these past 3 years you have seen record profits, and you're going to treat your talent this badly. And don't get me wrong, when there was no alternative whatsoever, I I guess I understand it if you're a sleazy promoter like Vince McMahon is, that you would just treat your employees like dog shit because they have nowhere to go. But he wasn't doing that shit when WCW was an option. Not to this extent.
No.
He, but it's just like at
I
some
guess
point they're gonna have to change gears.
when you're the only game in town, who's going to argue with you?
Right. At some point, this shit's going to have to change gears because I'm telling you, there's only so long that everybody can hear that it's better on the other side.
I mean, I think that in their eyes, they're trying to turn things around, but they're really not.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's
Really-
let's let's take Rick Steiner's kid. Let's not put the Steiner name on him so that he doesn't have any name recognition whatsoever, and
yeah.
let's immediately push him to the moon on NXT. Yeah. Let me tell you, when he comes out, when he inevitably beats Tommaso Ciampa, which will be soon, it will be very soon, I promise. People will be livid.
Probably. I was wondering, what is your take on the Skittles relaunch? NXT Taste the Rainbow.
I once considered myself a big fan of what NXT was doing. I even at one point liked NXT a lot better than what AEW was doing. But I can't even fathom that now. I mean, it's like I read results from NXT, right? And it's just like, how is this the same product? You know? You look at like Velveteen Dream. They've taken that guy. If you'd have told me, what, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that Velveteen Dream would be watered down to the point that he is now, I would have been like, "There's no way they're going to botch it that hard."
I didn't
But
even realize he was still on the program.
right, yeah, he's barely on the program,
That's
and I'm just like, this guy should have been the guy because he's got the. I mean, now that Adam Cole is gone, I don't know that there's anybody else there that has it. That has the it factor, that has everything, the full combo. I mean, Ciampa's got the look, the physicality. He can cut the promo, but he doesn't have the charisma,
no,
right?
and
Not to be the guy. Now he could do very well there.
the only other guy I could see being the guy would be Pete Dunne.
Yeah, and I mean even he's got. I think he might have a hard time appealing to like a general audience in some instances, but I agree with you. I think he is a charismatic guy. He's got a unique look. Um, we talked about this a lot as far as like Stone Cold or like James Drake. He's real, you know. You even if you know if you're just an average person and you know that wrestling is completely fake, you watch him and you wonder, well, I don't think I don't think anybody told this guy, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the whole point. I say it because I know I know some girls that watch wrestling, and they're all like Pete Dunne's hot. So I was like, well, there's half the battle win right there.
Well, if we're gonna go off of that, Randy Orton is the greatest superstar of all time.
Well, yeah.
All the ladies like Randy Orton.
They do. They do.
I'm just like, well, he thanks you because that's the only reason he's got a job because he has been boring for over a decade.
Yeah, but I don't know. I heard this about NXT, and I'll just be honest. Yes, I consume more wrestling content, but it is not current WWE content. That's for
It's awful.
yeah. I can't do it. I don't like anything that they're doing. But I heard that NXT now is going to be edgier and it's more attitude error. What?
It's not.
Okay.
All they have done is they have taken what we once loved as NXT, which was a multi-million-dollar indie show, right? It was an indie show with a steady roster and all the production value that goes with being under the WWE umbrella. And now it is just another 2 hours of Raw and SmackDown with different talent,
Okay.
and
That's
that's where we are.
That sounds about right. And I don't understand that mindset of WWE where everything, I guess, I don't know if in their eyes they think every show looks different to them or if they do it on purpose. I can't figure it out.
I feel like we spent an incredible amount of time talking about this exact subject for like several months, and I think all of the wrestling world is talking about this exact subject, which is like the comparisons between AEW and WWE have become so ludicrous because I mean it's to the point now. It like once upon a time, right? It was like, well, okay, you might have better wrestling than WWE, but nobody's going to match their production value. Oh, wait, AEW's production value is better than theirs. Their
Yeah,
set, the set, we'll talk about this, but the set this week on Dynamite
I
was
knew you were
incredible.
going to love that.
It was incredible. Yeah, I mean, I love a good wrestling set, and I think WWE's have been boring and predictable for quite some time. They just add more screens,
Yeah,
right? Um,
that's all they do.
and WWE does those horrible fucking CG overlays that everyone hates and no one asked for, and you can't see them live because they're fucking done. I mean, they're done live, but they're done in post.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like everyone hates this, man. Why are you guys doing this stuff? It's you
I
know
never understood that. From day one, I've never understood that. I'm just like, that is the stupidest thing. Like, and it's overkill because
right.
I get what it's from. It's from when the NFL and like hockey or sports in general, when they get this shot on the field where you get the stats of everything.
Yeah,
That's kind of what they're trying to do, except they overdo it.
Right, because it's WWE. And
Of
doing
course.
things in moderation is not their forte. I mean, that we were convinced they were going to make Titus O'Neil's gimmick that he slips and falls for a while.
They
And
tried.
I'm still shocked that they didn't do it.
Well, they tried to,
They did.
but
They let it go for like 2 weeks. But
yeah,
I thought we were looking at like a year plus of this.
I,
So
I I definitely thought so too. But I mean, just I- can someone act normal in WWE? Like,
no.
can anybody? What Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, and hell, let's even give him his credit. Triple H back in the day, they were badasses. That was what made them appealing to the audience. Is Stone Cold was a walking badass. Where is that badass in WWE? And that brings me to a point that I wanted to make on this episode, right? Here's the reason, in my opinion, this could be from what I have observed. Maybe people agree with me on this, maybe they don't. But here's what I've noticed, all right? WWE and unfortunately Ring of Honor, they do not have anything worth following right
Right.
now, to the point where everyone wants to see what's going to happen next.
Right.
They don't have that. AEW obviously is the top right now at that. But you even throw in like NWA has got stuff that people are interested in.
Right.
MLW has got stuff people are interested in and stuff. They're doing their big relaunch and they're being picked up by Vice. So they've got some interest going on. New Japan Pro Wrestling, they've had people from day one, even though the Bullet Club basically left. They still have maintained their momentum and stuff like that. Ring of Honor, I noticed this. I love them to death and I still support them in ways, but I looked at it and I was like, there is nothing on this TV show worth watching, like
Right.
worth following. Same thing with WWE. There's nothing worth following. You had something worth following, and then you let it go away for 18 months, which was, not under your control. But then when she comes back, you immediately turn her heel and kill all of that.
Yeah, I mean, people were invested in Bianca Belair's title run too.
Yeah.
And they ruined that. We could talk about this for a second. They put the belt on Big E for a pop, and that's it for a ratings pop that they didn't even really get, and it
No.
was so bad because they had him. You can't do a Money in the Bank cash in spontaneously for a ratings bump because by the time people hear about it, it's already over. So they had Big E go on Twitter and be like, "Hey, I'm gonna cash in the briefcase tonight." Why would you do that? That makes no sense. You lose the advantage of having the briefcase.
I did not know that he sent that tweet out.
Yeah, of course he did because it was purely done for publicity. And while I think everybody knows that like Big E deserved that long before now,
But yeah,
um,
obviously.
it doesn't mean anything because there was no build to it. They're not gonna. They're not gonna. He's not gonna have a good run because I mean, tell me, when's the last time somebody in WWE had a good title run?
Other than the AJ,
Correct.
there you go.
Yeah, and that was what 3 years ago, maybe more.
Yeah, probably something like that. Other than AJ, though, no one has had a pretty good title run and everything like that. But and here was the thing. I understand the cash in, the Money in the Bank is supposed to be spontaneous and everything, but here's how minuscule it obviously is. Right after he cashes in, the very next week, guess who comes out to challenge him? Roman Reigns.
Of course. And you know that Roman's gonna beat him.
He already beat him in a triple threat match. He beat both Lashley and Big E.
See, I don't even follow it enough. I knew that they did that match at the house show in Augusta when they were there.
No, they did it on the Madison Square Garden
Great.
episode. One of them. I
Yeah.
swear to God they did. If I'm wrong, folks, I'm sorry. I've been wrong in the past
No,
about some
no,
things
no.
where
You're probably right because that's what WWE does when they do house shows. When they do the rounds like that, is if they're gonna have a pay per view match between Roman Reigns and Big E, then that's the match they'll run at the house shows. Right. Because their idea, like, I guess they think that it's going to build chemistry between the two people, but all it does is they just get into the motions of the matches, and then they're just running through it, and it's evident.
Yeah, I mean it's evident from the start. And here's the thing. WWE, I don't know if they realize this. Maybe they care, maybe they don't. I don't know. But there's obviously some other people in that company right now that are looking at what Adam Cole and Brian Danielson and CM Punk just did, and Malachi Black as well. And they're going, hmm, I'd like to go over there and try that.
Hopefully, it's some of the women. We'll talk about that in a minute. Uh, I want to say this, and then we can move on. It's almost wasting our breath to criticize WWE, right?
Right.
And the whole wrestling world is doing it. But here's the thing: they could not give a single shit. There's no like it would be like walking up to somebody who doesn't give a single shit about like their job and be like, "Yeah, man, you're not doing great there." They'd be like, "I don't care. I'm trying to get the fuck out of here." Like that's basically what WWE is at this point in time. Is there's no care whatsoever in the quality of the product that they're putting out. You can't even really criticize it because even if Bruce Pritchard was sitting here in the room with me, I'd be like, dude, you know that no one fucking likes Monday Night Raw, right? You know it fucking sucks. And he'd be like, well, we're getting paid. And like that would be it. Like all they care about is that they turn fucking 7 hours a week of mindless fucking content over to NBC or USA or whoever the fuck is paying their bills this week. And
Right.
that's it. That's all they care about. And
And,
and and there's no quality, like there is no pride in the work at all. They don't give a shit.
and obviously I can see that and everything, but I hate it when people say that as well, that they don't care, because it makes it also sound like the talent doesn't care, and we know that's not the case. Because you tell the talent to do anything, they're going to go out there and do it.
Oh, I think some of the talent cares, but I also think I think a majority of them have to be looking at AEW like, uh, I mean, really? Can I go over there? Because they just I can't remember who talked about this recently, but for the first time, it was Mick Foley. We're in this position where a young and up and coming wrestler who wants to make a career out of it. Once upon a time, everybody wanted, it was like, I gotta get on WrestleMania. That's how I know I've truly made it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think I don't think anybody who
Uh,
is in love with professional wrestling wants to go to WWE and get it kicked out of them every day.
Yeah. No. They don't. They obviously they have seen how people feel in AEW, but it's not just AEW as well. The momentum that AEW has right now, that's obviously why. But they're also they can look at other places and be like, okay, well, I'm not just gonna make $50, or I'm not just gonna make anything. You can actually go other places and make money. And we haven't had that for like 20 years.
Right.
That's the problem. And that's what I've always said, obviously. But now with this forbidden door thing, and everyone working together and stuff like that, now you've got more options. Now you've got more places you can go to get discovered. We just launched, actually, here in Atlanta. I don't know if you noticed this, but on Peachtree TV, one of the stations that I help run on Master Control, we just had championship wrestling from Atlanta.
Yep. The tapings for that were happened to be the same night as Dragon Con Wrestling, so that is why I was not there. But I looked at the poster and it looked incredible. interesting to see how that goes because I know one of the major sponsor for that, recently spent like, I want to say over 100 grand on a ad campaign that was all centered around one Nature Boy Ric Flair. So they're gonna have to pull that shit. Uh, but moving on, we're talking about the momentum of AEW right now.
Yeah.
And they have announced just today that Rampage will be staying on TNT on Friday nights, but
Uh-huh.
they're going to be promoting Dynamite to the main station of TBS, and that is going to start in January because Dynamite has been the number one in the ratings on Wednesday nights consistently. As a matter of fact, this week rather, it actually was, I think, the number three most viewed episode of Dynamite.
That's amazing because they really hit a home run with that Grand Slam episode. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Before we go on to that, though, do you agree with my theory, though, that, not just WWE, but also Ring of Honor, who, I've been rooting for. And I tried to even push on this program, us doing the pure tournament and everything like that. But I looked at it and I was like, there's nothing to follow. There's
Dude,
nothing to get excited about Ring of Honor.
if you go on, I think it was Fight, and you watch those episodes we reviewed or look at our coverage of them, and then you go and watch it today, it's the exact same shit that was going on at the time of the pure tournament, basically.
It's basically nothing's really changed. Nothing's really happened. They had Bandito win the ROH World Title, but that hasn't really gone anywhere. And I thought that they were going to get some big momentum with the EC3 acquisition. That really hasn't done anything because to me, they don't know how to book in Ring of Honor right now.
I think Caprice Coleman either he's freelance for them now, or he renegotiated his deal with them because he's wrestling on the Indies. He's the AML champion right now,
Yeah.
and I know 100% that his deal before like this past year was exclusive with them. He could not work anywhere else.
I don't know. And here's the thing. I go back to why Ring of Honor is struggling, and it really has to come down with a few things. Obviously, the Bucks, Cody, and literally half of their talent roster was taken by AEW. That's obviously first and foremost. Their partnership with New Japan disappeared, and they squandered. I mean, they literally shit the bed on their Madison Square Garden show,
Right.
in my opinion. Now, the show overall at Madison Square Garden was good, but that was thanks to New Japan's portion. Ring of Honor, like no one left talking about.
And that is kind of the thing too. Is we talked about this before. Momentum is so hard once it's going against you to get it back. I mean, getting it in the first place is lightning in a bottle. But if it's going against you and you're trying to reverse course on that, nearly impossible. WWE is going to find that out eventually because all this stuff hasn't started to hit their bottom line yet, but it will.
It will.
When people continuously are pouring away from them, and when Dynamite is beating Raw in the key demographics, it's not NXT anymore. Now it's Raw that they're beating, and especially like people who are fans of NXT. Cornette talked about this a few weeks ago. If you've been watching NXT and you like Adam Cole's still on Wednesday nights. NXT isn't, and that's a huge thing, man. Radically transforming your show of your like diehard loyalists. Because if you look at Monday Night Raw, right, that's all only wrestling on Monday night is Raw.
Yeah.
If you go and look at the ratings for NXT versus the ratings for Dynamite, the people who were watching NXT instead of Dynamite, those are hardcore NXT fans. So instead of improving that product and moving it back to another night so you can get the rest of the audience back, we're going to radically change it and make it about the shows that nobody gives a shit about, that these fans are watching NXT to get away from. And where do you think those people are going to go? They're not going to start watching the new shit. They're not going to start watching SmackDown. They're going to go start watching AEW.
Yeah, basically. It's so funny to me because WWE keeps driving their own fans to AEW.
Right.
That's what's so ironic about it. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, if y'all would like to stop the bleeding, stop freaking cutting yourselves.
It's not gonna come to a head for WWE until they get to the point where they have to renegotiate one of these TV deals, and the ratings are what they are, and then it's gonna start hitting them.
Well, luckily for them, they don't have to worry about those TV negotiations for a long time.
That's true, and that's probably why they made sure that was a thing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why they signed instead of like I think it was around 2011 or 12. That was when like they signed like a 15-year deal with Universal basically.
right. Yeah.
Whoever I mean, now known as the Peacock, but yeah, like they signed like a 15-year deal. And then
Yeah.
SmackDown at least has been signed for 10 years or so. They don't like, I'll say that about WWE. When they negotiate things, it's not for a 1 year or 2 year thing. Like they make sure that they've got, a good cushion.
Well, and that's the thing too is that everybody knows that they signed a 3-year deal for the Peacock integration, but everybody knows that at the end of that 3 years, there's a almost 0% chance that they're going to pull all of that content out and start the network back up. It's
Oh
not going
yeah.
to happen.
No.
Either they're going to renegotiate a new deal for a bunch of money with NBC, or NBC is going to buy them. Now, there's an off chance that the deal falls through, but if it does, it's not going to be on WWE's end. It's going to be on NBC's end. NBC's going to be like, we don't want this shit. I guess it really just depends on how much content they can drive into the Peacock, but WWE kind of has them over a barrel right now because WWE's putting out 7 hours of content every week. Even if the content is shit, it doesn't matter. There's no new content on Peacock really because they don't have any shows for it. So they're desperate for new content, and that's why the deal's there in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And now they've got almost all of the content of WWE network on there now. So, you know, I but they also have their obviously they do have a lot more though than you think. They do have a lot of shows. I don't know if people necessarily watch them like they'd like them to or something like that, but they have a lot of shows on there.
Well, I know they have a lot of shows, but I'm talking about how many shows do they have that are running right now, and they're not on regular NBC because you can get NBC, you can hook up an antenna and get NBC. Everybody with cable has NBC, but I'm talking about like if you have to subscribe to Peacock to get this show. I don't think they have a lot of those.
They do. They have a couple of shows right now. Actually, they have several shows. They have the Saved by the Bell reboot. They had some other things I know. I don't know them like off the top of my head, but you can also subscribe to the Peacock Network and you can watch NBC live on there.
Yeah,
And
that's
you don't
true.
even need to have that.
And that is a plus. That is a major plus for them. So I will give them that. Um, before we wrap up, let's talk about this week's episode of Dynamite. This was a big deal. This was the Grand Slam event, part one of the Grand Slam event. Part two is going to be a Rampage this Friday night, and that's going to be another. It's going to be another 2 hour event, special 2 hour event, and
Yeah,
all of this is in New York. It's a sold out event. It's not Madison Square Garden. It's Arthur Ashe Stadium. Um, and
it does
it's
not matter.
no, as a matter of fact, it was completely sold out.
Yep.
And the thing about that too is vaccinations are 100% required for this too. So even given that, they still 100% sold out the venue. WWE has not done that for a non pay per view event. I don't even know when the last time, man. I mean,
Uh, I don't remember either, because they always have sections of their thing, tarped off.
yeah,
AEW's not had that.
there's an episode. Let's see. So it's at the end of November, beginning of December. So like last week in November, first week of December, WWE is running, and then AEW is running the same venue a week later. And if you look at the ticket sales right now, all of everything except the far upper levels of AEW is sold out. WWE, you can still get shit like almost ringside. It's embarrassing how many seats are left. There's
Yeah,
just no momentum. Um,
there's nothing worth going to pay your hard-earned money at WWE to see.
and wasting your time because this is gonna be the same shit you see every week on TV.
Exactly. But with
So
AEW, it's like now they've created that situation that Eric Bischoff loves, which is what's going to happen next.
exactly.
And
Um,
it's not even who's going to come over next, because you can create that anytime, but it's also just their stories. They've got rivalries and matches and stuff that people are actually interested in seeing.
right. Yeah, I agree. Speaking of, let's talk about the match they opened the show with.
Mm.
Um, before we get into the match itself, now having seen the entire show, do you agree with their decision to open with this?
I guess for the outcome of it, I mean, I didn't think anything of it either way. Like, it didn't bother me whether it opened the show or closed the show. I agree though with the outcome with it, because I don't think either man looked bad, and I don't think it was a shit ending or anything like that. I think they created the anticipation of because here's the thing, right? Let's use a football analogy, right? Georgia and Alabama rarely play each other, right? The only times that they really do is almost every 4 years they play each other in a regular season game. And then and then the only time that you would see that is in like the SEC championship, or hell, even the national championship, because that actually happened. And the thing is, though, is just because they see it one time, you know, they see it one time, but then they're kind of like, well, now I want to see it again. And to me, that's what they've done with Brian Danielson and Omega here. Is it's like, okay, I saw it here. Now I want to see it again and even bigger.
Typically, I'm against this type of finish that's like a time limit draw because WWE has become so. You watch a pay per view, and every other match is a DQ or no contest or a time limit draw or whatever. It's the 50-50 booking nonsense. AEW never does that. They always give you a winner, right? And
Yeah.
it's usually a clear winner. It's either a dirty finish or it's a clean cut win. This was like really the first time they've done this with a match this big, and that's why it felt so unique because it doesn't happen all the time. It almost never happens. Um, I thought the match itself was fantastic.
I loved it. And I was wondering if you were gonna say that, because I was like, there's no way he's gonna shit on Omega somehow.
No, I mean Omega did good. Like I mean I still don't like him, right? I mean, there's here's the thing, right? If you watch this match, Brian Danielson called the match. He did because if you look at the pacing of the match, it's not Kenny Omega pacing. Kenny didn't try to do any dumb shit that he can't do. There was very little shaking and finger pointing and making stupid faces. The match was serious. This was a Brian Danielson match. Here's the thing. I'm learning about Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega can hang with anybody. But if Kenny Omega is going to have a Kenny Omega match and you're along for the ride, you are in fucking trouble if you ever want to be taken seriously again. And that's the problem. If you look at Okada, Okada was having absolutely stellar matches before Omega and after Omega. He's and he still is. Uh, if you look at Omega after he came to the United States for the first year of AEW, he shit the bed every night. Um, did I think this match was amazing? Yes. Was it as good as Punk and Darby? No.
No. I agree. I was having that conversation with someone else. I agree completely that Darby and CM Punk definitely takes the cake right now for match of the year. But this matchup, though, dude, I mean, literally, I have not seen this since Goldberg versus Hogan. All right.
Yeah.
I have not seen when the bell rang, the audience popped.
Right.
It went ding ding and they went yay.
And
And
they
then
popped for a lockup.
yeah, that was what I was going to say next. Then they went for a lockup and they got even louder. Like they were trying to do the whole, back him into a corner, then hit him, and they were trying to do that, and Danielson was trying to do that with the kick, and you can't hear them because the crowd is just so freaking fired up.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, I mean they popped for everything in
on,
this.
oh, the crowd was on their feet for literally everything, and I haven't seen that in 20 years. We saw that we covered that a lot with like the All Out pay per view. That's why that pay per view was just so good. And real quick before we go on, you as a production dude, how about the stage lighting up, the ramp?
The the entire set for this was incredible. I mean, it was one of the best wrestling sets that I've seen in a very long time. And when I first saw it, I was like, man, that is like really, really like just top tier. Uh, when Malachi Black came out later on, his entrance was perfect. They did such a good job with it.
My God,
They've been doing a great job with it a lot. It's Undertaker esque, right? It takes cues from Finn Balor and from Undertaker, but it's just unique enough to where you don't think, okay, that's just he's ripping these guys off, right?
no, because I've said this for a while now. I thought Tommy N was his own thing.
Right.
Like he's obviously he has those Undertaker like qualities, but I can tell you how Tommy N pulls it off because he, like me, listens to a lot of metal. Now he probably listens to a lot more black metal and death metal. He probably listens to like a lot of deathcore and hardcore as well. But like he listens to all that. So then you put those kind of elements into your character. That's why you come off across that way.
Yeah, agreed. I think he's his own thing. Before we move on, though, I do want to point out that I still hate Excalibur's commentary. I noticed that they have changed it up a bit, like that he's doing a lot of the play by play now, like because he knows the names of all these like ridiculous moves that Jr. doesn't know. So he'll
Right.
call the move, and then Jr. will talk about the like emotion of the match, and then Shivani will like come back with something, and I think that
Yes,
that
like
works.
yes, like one of the best lines of the night was when they were they were going back and forth, Omega and Danielson, and Tony Schiavone just goes, "Boy, these guys are just kicking each other's ass right now."
Yeah, they did a great job with that. What I really, one point in the match, it was when Omega hit the Dragon Suplex on Danielson,
Uh-huh.
and Excalibur's like, that ramp is plexiglass. And then he realizes that plexiglass isn't hard, and then he's like on top of a LCD screen, and then he realizes that doesn't sound like it's a hard thing either, and he's like, and that's on top of some scaffolding, and he's like, what I'm trying to say is it's really hard, and I was just like, oh my god, man, just wrap it up, dude. That was hilarious to me.
I agree. I mean, I think that there's a lot better announcers than Excalibur. He's grown on me. I, you know,
Same.
it,
He's
it
better than he
like
was.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that just comes with, time. And each other really figuring out what it is everyone was doing exactly. Because I would always get pissed that he would talk over JR. And
Right.
I was just like, oh my God, just let JR be JR. And then kind of as I thought about it and listening to JR on his podcast, he really doesn't know like a lot of the modern stuff. He can't really keep up with some of that stuff.
Right. But the thing is, here's the thing about that. There's a section of these hardcore like AEW marks that think they know what they're talking about when it comes to wrestling.
Of course.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be like this old man, like get off my lawn with your new age wrestling shit, you know, because always hated those people, right? But
Yeah.
you know, if you watched All Out and you thought that the cage match was the best match, get the fuck out of here.
No, no.
And
I
and
agree.
and there is a subset of those people, and those people hate JR, and I'm like, that's because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
JR's been in the wrestling business longer than you've been alive. You know,
Yeah, no, I agree completely on that. What I always and I still maintain this. If they're gonna have Rampage and they're going to have Excalibur as the main announcer for that, then to me, it's as simple as then just have it be JR and Tony Schiavone for Dynamite. Because here's the thing, JR might not be able to keep up, but I have seen Tony Schiavone and MLW call matches like that as well, and he's been able to keep up with it fine. He might not know move for move sometimes, but he still sounds like he did back in WCW.
agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's these are the same people that had to join MJF in googling who Juventud Guerrero was, right? Like, I really appreciate that AEW to an extent tries now to lean away from that fan base, because what they were doing for a long time is they were leaning into it. And that's when the show sucked. That's when we were getting fucking Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy in a fucking orange juice pool. Like when we were getting just all this dumb shit, the exploding sparkler ring. And now that Tony Khan is booking and not the fucking executive vice presidents,
What'd you just say?
miraculously,
What'd you just say?
now that
Tony
Tony Khan
Khan.
is booking, yeah,
Uh-huh.
you didn't, were you not aware of this?
No, no, no. See, I knew that, but I didn't know if you knew that.
No, I know, because in the beginning, they had divided everything up. Jericho was booking his own shit. Cody Rhodes was booking his own shit. The tag division was being booked by the Young Bucks, and the women's division was being booked by Kenny fucking Omega, which is why it was terrible as shit, and it still is. Uh, and now you can very clearly see once Tony Khan took over the booking.
No, no, yeah, I can definitely. He took over the booking. To me, he took it over after Revolution.
Yep.
When
When that fucking exploding sparkler ring bullshit happened, he was
now,
like, no.
and here's the thing, he's been asked about that, and they asked him. They said, "Are you going to try the exploding ring again?" Or not the exploding ring, but the barbed wire explosion match. And he's like, "Yes, I am going to try it again, but this time I'm not doing it with pyrotechnic guys. I'm going to do it with wrestling guys or something like that. Like this time, we're going to make sure it goes right. You like you're going to get a big explosion this time."
Yeah, I mean, the in the history of wrestlers as bookers, it's bad all the way around. There's not like either you wrestle and then you realize that you're better in the backstage and then you go and do that and that's fine. But if you're like an active wrestler or you wrestled for 40 years and now all of a sudden you want to be a booker, that shit doesn't jive. There's a reason that there's two separate roles, because a lot of times, and there's nothing wrong with this. A lot of times, wrestlers are not good at seeing the big picture. They have a small picture mentality because they're thinking about what moves am I going to do, what am I going to do in my match? Is this going to get over? Is that going to get over? And they're not thinking about, okay, The match before me did this, this, and this, so I should be completely different than that. The match after me has this guy and this guy in it. They're going to do this sort of style, so maybe we shouldn't do anything that they're going to do. How can I make my match stand out on the card? Like, that's not the kind of thing. If I had anytime I ever have a wrestler come up to me and talk to me about something like that, I immediately gain a ton of respect for that person because it's so incredibly rare. I recently saw a show where the exact same move combination was used in two different matches. The crowd actually chanted, "We just saw this." I mean, it happens. It happens in the indies. It happens in the majors.
Yeah.
It just does. So Tony Khan is a guy who can sit back and look at the entire product. And since he took over the booking, it's like I said, it's like day and night, and the ratings, prove that.
Yes, I was gonna say that, like, to me, ever since they went on the road, that was when, or when they went back on the road and they started gaining back fans,
Yeah.
that was when the bookings started to become better. And I don't know if it was just because of the fans being there. I don't know. Like, to me, we were saying that Tony Khan needed to come in and take over. Well, he definitely did that because you can tell the Bucks are not booking a lot now. You can tell that Jericho's not really booking his own stuff. That's being done by someone else. And, Cody's not. And, there were reports, and Cody even kind of said this in his promo, that, him and the Bucks and Omega had some problems. And I think Tony Khan came in and was like, okay, well, since you guys can't come to an agreement, guess whose company it is? Mine. Guess whose money it is? Mine.
Right.
So you're going
And
to
I'm
do what I
glad.
say. And CM Punk has even said this. Like, he said in an interview, he said, I might have creative input, yes, but there's one guy that makes the final decision, and that's Tony Khan. If he says I'm losing to this guy, guess what? I'm losing to that guy.
Right. Speaking of CM Punk, he was up next with a promo segment.
Amazing.
I'm going to be honest, man. It was a CM Punk promo, which I'm not tired of by any means because I would watch one every week. But I wasn't a huge fan of it, and I don't know if it's just because I really didn't agree with the decision to open with this match because it's just like Punk said. How do you follow that? Like, I think the crowd was like tired because they popped so hard for that match and it was long. Um, I mean, he was still incredibly over. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they were singing the man's music, but it didn't really. I don't know. It didn't really do it to me. I feel like he is. I feel like what he was doing here was trying to pump up the match with Hobbs, and I don't think anyone cares that much. They care because CM Punk is there, but I don't know that anybody cares about it being Hobbs. Like, I don't. I think the fact that they took him from this Darby match into this Team Taz thing, I think it's a complete waste of CM Punk. I know that they probably are going to try to alternate it, like a big dream match, and then like having him work with like a mid card kind of talent, and then probably alternate that. And I get it, but I would have probably had him do a bunch of high profile things, maybe back to back for like maybe 2 or 3 months when he came in, and then start to do some of this stuff. I don't know. It feels like it's kind of he beat Darby and now they're pulling all the wind out of his sails. Is the way I feel about it.
I mean, yeah, I guess I can see that. I don't know. I love the promo. Just because, I don't know. I thought the crowd was still into it. I
It
could
wasn't
definitely.
a bad promo. CM Punk doesn't cut a bad promo.
Oh, this is
So
true. So, I don't know. I'm still interested in seeing the match. I think there's a lot of upside to Hobbs. I think that he has a lot of potential, and CM Punk, to me, I'm kind of expecting stuff like this from CM Punk for right now because he stated in interviews that he wants to work with the young talent right now.
right,
Um, he's going to be involved in high profile matches, but I think for right now they're gonna put Bryan Danielson more in that, because with Punk, we know that we've got him for a good while. You've got Bryan Danielson for a good while. Hey, in a cameo there.
Hmm.
But yeah, you've got Punk for a while. With Bryan Danielson, obviously they've got him for a while, but they don't know how long necessarily, because he's not going to be around for too long.
Yeah, I mean that whole thing's interesting.
Or maybe I don't know. I don't know what his conditions are like health wise. I mean, he looked good in that match with Omega.
He took some crazy bumps in that match. I mean, when he took that dragon suplex on the apron, I mean, obviously he knew what he was doing because he didn't land on his neck. He landed on his shoulders and he like slid.
Oh yeah.
The guy knows how to take a bump, but and I was very worried. I was every time they did something like that, I was like, tensed up a little bit. We'll see how it goes. I'm definitely interested. I definitely don't want to see CM Punk doing this B-lister nonsense while Bryan Danielson fights Kenny Omega for the title for 6 months. I don't want to see that shit. If you're gonna take the title off of Omega, do it now, and I want to see Danielson and Punk. But I don't think I think that's a waste of the title. I don't think they need it. Um,
Mm-mm.
that's just where I'm at right now. I think I also would love to see MJF move into a feud with Punk, but we can speculate more on that in the future. Speaking of MJF, what did you think about this match with him and Pillman?
I think that Brian Pillman Jr. still needs a lot of work.
I agree with you.
I've said that about him for a while, dude, because if you look at a lot of his stuff with MLW, or before that, it's not very crisp yet. And I'm not saying that he's bad or anything like that. I'm just saying he needs a lot more work. He needs to get a lot more aggressive with some of his punches. Some of his punches and forearms look like shit.
Yeah. Also, there was one of the things I noticed. If you go back and watch that match, why are there so many arm wrenches? Like, it's like every time somebody was going to do anything, it's like, there's an arm wrench. And then it's like, but they just drop it. They either do an arm wrench and whip the guy, which, okay, fine. Like, that's a nice little flourish. But there was like, it felt like 70 arm wrenches. I know this is an exaggeration, but there was so many damn arm wrenches in this match. And several times it's like, he would do the arm wrench, and then after he gets the arm wrench, he'd immediately drop the arm and like punch him or push him into the corner or chop him or something. I'm like, what are you doing? And then he would go right back and do another arm wrench, and it was so awkward for both MJF and Pillman. I don't know the match. It wasn't awful, but it just felt wonky. It
Yeah.
didn't flow real well.
No, I agree completely. And that's because I don't think there's much behind the feud.
Right.
Because,
It's just a follow up from last week, and hopefully this is it and it's blown off now.
yeah, maybe. I really would like to see more from MJF.
Right.
And we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, no, I agree with you. But that was just something I took away, and I've said that for a while. I like Pillman Jr. I'm rooting for him, but he needs a lot more work.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Cody Rhodes, Malachi Black. This was. I thought that this was great.
I love it because I am such a huge fan of Alistair Black, Malachi Black, Tommy N. I don't care what his name is. I fucking love that dude.
Me too. And I thought that he absolutely looked like a star here.
Yes.
And it's so crazy that he was across from Cody, who I think at this point has completely lost the support of the fans. Um, and they're embracing that. That the moment with Brandy where she got in the ring and flicked him off and was like "fuck you," which I thought was, it was like, you'll never see this in WWE. The
No.
crowd went nuts over it. I think they
Yeah.
need to leave Arn Anderson in the back because the people aren't going to boo Arn Anderson. under any
No,
circumstances.
no. And can I play Booker here?
Sure.
Because this is how I would do it. All right. It's clear that Cody Rhodes needs to turn heel. He needs to do it. All right. The crowd is just not into him as a face. They're not buying it. And how can you? Okay. I've said this for, well, because I always say this about John Cena, right? You cannot be a baby face, not necessarily in his instance with clothes or anything, but you can't be a baby face if you own more stuff that costs more than my house.
Yeah. And and
Like,
it and it's been said like that it's strange seeing the crowd, booing a guy wearing all this color and cheering for this guy in all black with the paint.
well, yeah, but the guy who is in all black and everything, like he relates more to me because,
Right.
like, okay, Alistair, Malachi Black, you know, like I said, it's a guy who listens to deathcore and metalcore, has tattoos and everything. I'm like, I dig that. I relate to that kind of thing. Cody, on the other hand, comes out here. He's got a $5,000 bracelet. He's wearing suits and everything like that. I'm like, that's the bad guy. That's
Right.
the bad guy because he makes more money than me. Now, I'm not saying that that necessarily makes you a bad guy, but in wrestling sense, it does. You
Right. I
know?
mean, he went off to film a reality TV show.
Yeah,
You know, he comes out there looking like fucking Evil Knievel now.
exactly.
Uh, it's just
It, it,
it's
it, I agree. And here's how I would turn him, right? I would do this.
he's already turned.
Well, yeah, he is already turned, but I guess as far as storyline's sake, this is how I would do it. All right. I would have Malachi Black tease that he's going to hit Brandy. Just tease it. But then he pulls back one week and he's like, no, I'm not. That kind of teases the audience. They're like, okay, well, maybe he has some good values to him. And then I guess at a pay per view or one of the big dynamites, you have him versus Cody again, obviously. And he goes to do the Black Mass on Brandy or something like that, or she jumps in the way. And, he pulls back and is like, I'm not going to go that route. But then she low blows him, and Cody comes and, hits him with the crossroads and pins him, beats him. Arn Anderson comes out and says, "What was that? What just happened here?" And then he turns on Anderson.
That would do it in a heartbeat, man. You
Uh,
talking
uh,
about it? You're talking about MJF level heat at that point.
yes,
Uh,
it's
and,
instant
and
value.
and and that would be great because people are going to love Arn Anderson forever. That's just how it is. So,
This is I can't book wrestling.
hey, man, I like that. I love that angle.
That's
Um,
how I would do it. That's how I would do it because here's the thing: I don't think you can keep Malachi Black a heel. There's no one that wants to boo him.
he's not a heel. I mean, if it was booked that way, I couldn't tell.
Yeah,
Everybody loved it. Everybody
exactly.
loved him and all his shit.
Technically, he has been the heel though. He's been doing the sneak attacks. He, put his foot over Cody. Like those are heel moves, but people thought they were so badass.
At least Cody and Brandy at this point have embraced it. They're not trying to do what WWE would do, which is have them go out there and do all this white meat baby face shit while they get booed.
Exactly. And that's why I've said, that's why the thing with Omega for me, I'm like, well, it's good that you don't like him because you're not supposed to right now.
Yeah, but Omega has go away heat with me, not boo you heat.
All right. Well, I
Uh,
I get that, but you
um,
you get the point. Like even the Bucks, they turned the Bucks heel because they were trying to be baby faces as well, and the crowds just wasn't buying it. They're like, no, this seems fake.
because they're little shits, and everybody knows they're little shits, and they're probably a complete pain in the ass to be around backstage. So yeah, they're make them these smarmy, fucking hipstery heels, and they do great at it.
Yeah.
Speaking of tag teams, FTR versus Sting and Darby Allin.
I was a kid again watching Nitro during this matchup. Sting on TNT, killing it at fucking 50 years old, like
He
or
did great,
60
man.
or
He did
60
great.
years. Like it was insane. Like how is this guy still this good?
Right. I mean, he's 62, dude. Literally, he comes out, and I thought this was interesting at the beginning. Um, he comes out and gives those two really awesome scoop slams to FTR at the very beginning of the match, and Darby Allin goes on the apron. He's like, "Yeah," like he did it. Like it was really funny to me. But I loved this match. I loved the psychology in it. FTR looked really good. Darby got his stuff in. The coffin drop on the fucking ring apron, man,
Oh,
that looked awful. And then he bounced off and hit his head on the guardrail.
yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh my god, like, dude, but that's Darby.
Yeah, I
Like
know.
he's real.
He is, and I have nothing bad to say about this match. I mean, there might have been a couple of little botches here and there, but nothing they didn't recover from, nothing that took me out of the match. Um, it was just great. I really loved it. If I gotta complain about anything, I don't like whatever Sting was doing with the paint.
Yeah, well, I didn't really notice it either way. I guess I don't know. I didn't really notice it, but here's where here's my only complaint about the show. This is where I would have flipped. I don't necessarily mind the world title being on first. I mean, I would have put it as the main event, but I get why they put it on first because they were going to have the time limit draw and they didn't want it to be obvious, I guess. Or maybe I don't know. I kind of would have made that the main event, but if you were going to have that on first, then I would have made Malachi Black and Cody the main event and not the women's championship. And that sounds
Yeah,
bad. That sounds bad, but I'm not knocking the ladies. It's just not necessarily this particular match was main event worthy.
yeah, man. So let's go ahead. We're already running long, so let's talk about this because, um, fucking a man. Okay, look, you don't want to put Kenny Omega and Brian Danielson on last. I get that. You want to start the show hot. It's a risk I would have probably taken too. I can't. I'm not saying I would have done it that way. I'm saying that I would have considered it, um, and I might have done it that way.
Flatline.
Right. I don't fucking put this match on last. Man, this match was fucking terrible. This was the worst match on this card by a long shot, hands down. Pillman Jr. might have needed a little bit of work, but he was in there with MJF. I I'm going to hold up my giant "I told you so" flag. Ruby Soho is only in the spot she was in because of where she came from. She was average in WWE, and she's average here. She is not a main eventer. She is not a women's champion. And honestly, man, this match made Britt Baker look like shit too.
Yeah, it didn't do either girl favor. Like, again, I don't mind the title opening up the show, but I would have not had this as the main event. Like Malachi and Cody should have been the main event.
And dude, there were so many points in this match where the psychology just made no sense at all. I mean, it was like there was times, okay, not once but twice, Britt Baker comes and does a double stomp on the back of Ruby Soho's head. And so Ruby Soho is now face down, seemingly near unconscious, but at no point in time does she go for the lockjaw. And she already had the glove on. So it's like she's laying there. It's like, why aren't you going for your finish? And it was just like it didn't make any sense to me why they would, number one, drag this match out as long as they did, and then number two, like, why this match is in this place to begin with, because
Yeah.
anybody watching this, dude, I mean, there it was, none of it was smooth. Nothing in this match was smooth.
Well, I think the idea, is obviously to give the women the spotlight, and I agree with you need to do that more often, but not in this particular instance, just because the two weren't ready for it. But I get why they were trying it. I do get why they were doing it. It's just, and you know what? This is probably one of those instances where Tony will look back at it and go, all right, well, that was a bad way of formatting the show. And a lot of the times he's pretty good at learning, you know of formatting the show. He's
Yeah.
he's getting better and better at that, as we see. Sometimes though, you're going to make mistakes, and I just think this one was a mistake. I think that I think that they should have switched this around with the Malachi Black and Cody match. I think that this should have been where Malachi and Cody was, and Malachi and Cody should have been where they were.
Or they could have had Thunder fucking Rosa win the battle royal instead,
Okay,
and
that too.
and then this match would have been fucking incredible.
Okay,
Especially, can you imagine, the fucking roof would have come off of that place for a title change? It wouldn't have happened, and I don't think it should happen. I really don't want to see, like, I think they built Britt Baker all through the pandemic because they knew they wanted the title change for her to happen in front of people. But like, I mean, I just think that I think they have better women on their roster than Ruby Soho. I think these two don't have any chemistry really. I just I
and it's
wasn't digging
clear
this at
that
all.
It was clear that Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa had chemistry.
Right. And they're both over. I don't this crowd was not digging Ruby Soho.
No, they weren't.
But
They,
Britt
she
Baker was super over.
Oh yeah, but here's my thing: if they really wanted Britt Baker to be a heel, then they should put Thunder Rosa against her, because ain't nobody gonna cheer for Britt Baker if Thunder Rosa's in the ring.
Right. Exactly.
In her own hometown, she would get a split reaction just because Thunder Rosa's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, that's just me. I don't know. I don't know what they're planning and everything like that. We're gonna have to see. Obviously, though, they don't have that much faith in Ruby Soho either, because this feud's basically over now.
God, I hope it is.
It might. I don't know. If anything, I would have accepted Chris Statlander
Right.
because I like her.
I like her. I think she did a good job. Um, I mean, they have others. They have other people that can work. I just, it was, they don't have 10 though. They don't have. I don't know that they even have 6. Honestly, if some people are going to jump ship from WWE, I want to see more women come over. I want to see Sasha leave. I want to see Bailey leave. I want to see, um, I want to see Bianca Belair leave.
Well,
I,
Bianca Belair is not going to happen for a while, and
yeah,
then
I want to see Tony Storm leave. Like, there's a bunch of people I want to see leave.
do you know I
Because,
didn't even realize Tony Storm was still on SmackDown?
well, right, because the only thing on SmackDown that's worth a fuck to WWE is go ahead and do it. Exactly. Yeah. And
Hold on,
Paul
let
Heyman.
me say this. I do love Paul Heyman in that Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns back and forth thing.
It's
That's what.
great. I want to be interested in face lumberjack fucking Brock Lesnar. I think that shit's fucking great. Uh, but I won't watch it because I can't stomach it. I'll watch the highlights or whatever. But
Yeah.
I know the end result is going to be dog shit.
Yep.
I know Roman's going to beat him, and it's going to look very fucking hokey and fake because they've had Brock Lesnar beat the bejesus out of him for like 5-6 years now. It's just
He's beaten him one time.
it's garbage. Anyway, this has been State of Wrestling, September 2021. We are going to take a break, although that's not going to matter to you guys because these episodes probably go up at the same time. And then we're going to come back and we are going to talk about our bread and butter. We're going to talk about Dark Side of the Ring. So if you are listening to this episode first, check that out. If you've already listened to that one, hey, guess what? We'll have some new stuff coming up for you just next week because it's Dark Side of the Ring time, which is our favorite time of year, whenever it is. So,
absolutely. And if
yeah.
you thought we talked a lot about stuff on this episode, just wait till the plane ride from hell.
Oh man, all the tea, all the tea on the plane ride from hell. Which it sounds like there wasn't any actual tea on the plane; it was all liquor. Well, Caleb, thanks for joining me again, man.
Absolutely.
As always, I do want to give out a quick shout out to the superhero homies. I did talk on our previous episode about our trip to Dragon Con that we did together. They actually have a review out of Dragon Con, and instead of making that Patreon only, they've released it for free to the public, so everybody can access that. So you can hear all about our trip on that episode, some insider information on the boys, their discussions with like Chris Claremont and a bunch of other John Romita Jr., a bunch of like really like legendary Marvel writers and artists, and just a bunch of stuff. So definitely go check that out. Check out, of course, our Dark Side of the Ring review. And as far as the State of Wrestling goes, this has been an Evolved Review.